Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing my top 10 favorite manga of 2022. These are not all just releases from this year, though there are some. Most of them have been going on for several years, but I think knocked it out of the park in 2022. That being said, there's some slice of life, there's some action, there's a little bit of everything over here, so keep that in mind. Before we jump into the video though, please to check out my podcast that I'm doing with my friend in the description down below, as well as follow my other socials that you're seeing on the screen right now. Like and subscribe to the channel, and let's jump into the video. Two honorable mentions before we begin. We have Blue Box as well as My Dress Up Darling, both acting as honorable mentions that were both kind of phenomenal this year and kind of occupying the same slice for me, and that is palate cleanser manga that kind of go in between the other more action heavy or gore heavy series that I follow. Blue Box in particular I found really engaging with its storyline of a romance mixed with a sports characters trying to get to the top of their individual sports, girl into basketball, guy into badminton, and it's their not their misadventures, but their slow building of a relationship. It does have some classic manga tropes of the relationship really building slowly, but there's something deeply satisfying about the way the story is told in this one that really makes me happy when I read it. Alternatively, My Dress Up Darling has been a palate cleanser since I started reading it. It kind of blew up with the anime and became a huge phenomenon, but I've been reading this thing for such a long time now, and it's always acted as this nice little fun manga chapter to read, talking about a girl that's obsessed with cosplay and a guy that's kind of pulled along her misadventures. I'm not entirely crazy about where they've gone with some of the stuff in this story because I think it started out a little bit more innocent than it is now, even though it still remains largely innocent. But nonetheless, it remains a phenomenal series that's worth checking out. At number 10 is One Punch Man. Okay, so One Punch Man is a great series and it's been very consistent over the years at delivering a similar-ish kind of storyline with great fights, some solid comedy, and for me, I think now I lean much more on the comedy being the thing I enjoy, because while I do love the bombastic action when it occurs, if that's all I'm waiting for, I don't think there's enough of that in One Punch Man to be satisfying. There's just too much of a one-sidedness to those battles to really engage me in that way. However, the comedy and the overtopness of the characters and just weird characters in general has always kind of worked for me and remains one of the reasons I'm still reading this manga today, and why I think in 2022 it's still delivered pretty solidly, but doesn't deserve to be higher up on this list for the reasons I just mentioned. At number 9 is Tokyo Revengers, another one that really blew up with the anime release last year. I think it was last year or 2 years ago, I don't even remember. But Tokyo Revengers finished this year, and it brought us to an end that saw a lot of controversy within the community about if they're satisfied or not. In a way, I think it met our needs at the end, but there's definitely something that occurs that's just like a, huh? What? How does, that doesn't make, how the... Yeah, like we don't really know how the event occurred to make the story end in the way it does. But all in all, I'll say Tokyo Revengers was a great ride that brought us along to an ending that is largely satisfying. The only thing I'll say is it should have ended much earlier, and I think it would have been a much better series altogether. But that being said, in a world where mangakas are forced to continue their storylines long past where they should end in general when they're seeing popularity, I think it could have been a lot worse as an ending than what it actually ended up being, and overall I think it deserves to be at my number 9. Number 8 is One Piece. So I'm not a One Piece fanboy, okay? I'm not a fan of One Piece in general. Like, I honestly, for years I've never been a fan of ensemble, manga, anime, manhwa, whatever. When there's a lot of characters, I don't get engaged. However, in 2022, the fight against Kaido happened. And I had been a fan of the anime for a while back. I'd watched a few hundred episodes, not all of it, but a few hundred. And at that point, I think you're invested in the story a little bit. And I started seeing these flashes of what was happening in the anime, and I'm like, okay, I've got to go back to the manga and read this. And I read through the arc. I saw the amazing events that happened and the build-up and the amazing teamwork, and I can't deny it. One Piece is killing it, guys. And I understand every one of you that is obsessed with this series and loves it to death. It'll never be my favorite thing of all time, but I cannot deny its awesomeness no more. It makes it on my list at number 8. At number 7 is Spy Family. Spy Family, again, another one where the anime made the series blow up, but this thing had been my palate cleanser for quite some time already. Here's me dropping that. I was reading it before it was cool. Whatever. Spy Family has been a good, consistent series for quite some time. There's some weird-ass plot lines in this series, but it remains fun to read. And if nothing else, I think it's one of those series that has a little bit to offer to everyone. There's a little bit of the action. There's that romance in the background. There's the quirky comedy that's going on. And the uniqueness of the art style for each of the characters, the interesting dynamics, the interesting quirkiness of the characters themselves is absurd. In my podcast recently with my friend, we were talking about Spy Family, and I was talking about how I see the DNA of Harumi Suzumiya in this series in some ways. The Esper and the alien and the different people in the team making up like this uber strong team, but no one knows about each other's identities. There's something in there that I see of DNA of that series. I definitely like Spy Family much better than I like the original Harumi Suzumiya, but I have to say this one remains solid, and it consistently develops and demonstrates that I love it. Though I do want it to get to the point one of these days, because I do feel that there's some stuff that they're not quite delivering that I feel like they really need to deliver. At number 6 is Gachakuda. Gachakuda is a manga I started reading beginning of the year, I think when it released, basically, when it had like 3 chapters out. Already, first 3 chapters had already been like ooh, this is something to watch out for. Post-apocalyptic world, character dropped into a giant hole. It's the haves against the haves-not. The have against the have-not, sorry. And this character that's basically executed by being thrown into a hole. There's a whole world within that hole at the same time. There's a lot to discover in Gachakuda that is phenomenal. It can be extremely dark at moments with very desperate and depressing, but it's also over the top with shonen action at the same time. You can see the maturity of the storytelling in a lot of these manga. I cover Manhwa mostly in general, and you can see that just from a pure nuance of storytelling, there's a lot going on. And there's some other stuff on this list that really even push that nuance of storytelling so much further than a lot of other series do right now. At number 5 is my longest reading manga is Kingdom. I've been reading Kingdom for years and years and years, and Kingdom has never disappointed me in the art style. It's always been strong through the years. The amazing development of our protagonist over this crazy span of war. And while I won't say that this was its strongest year, because I do feel like we got bogged down in some of the fights way too long with not enough happening and there just being dialogue, I still find that we're in an interesting place in Kingdom because we're 2 or 3 steps away from our main protagonist finding his way to the peak that he's always seeked. And we know that just from the history of it and what this story represents, there's a lot left to do and a lot of conquest left to go. And this one makes me concerned, guys, because the way I look at it, they could end this series if they wanted to in a dozen chapters, 20 chapters if they wanted to, by just like kind of fast forwarding to the end and kind of saying that following the conquest of this, they got this, this, and this, and this. But I don't feel they're going to do that, which means there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of chapters left to this manga. And I'm hoping the artist and the writer of this is healthy, because like the level of the art in this series and the amount of detail in the war and the people fighting each other, it's a lot, man. And this will go down as one of the great masterpieces of manga for those that have not read it. Kingdom is one of the greats. At number 4 is Hell's Paradise. Hell's Paradise is an interesting one. A protagonist that can't be killed, or at least seems not to be able to be killed, that's met by a executioner that's there to behead him, and she seems to be the one that could end his life. And basically, they go on a quest together to find an elixir of immortality. it's kind of a goofy, I won't say buddy cop story, it's really not, but it's got just interesting gruesomeness to it at the same time as developing the difference between a person that's completely empty and a man that would sacrifice everything for the woman he loves but doesn't quite understand how much that person means to him. There's a lot going on in this story, and I think Hell's Paradise is something worth checking out. There's a lot of really interesting characters in this one. There's some, I won't say goofy powers, but there's some goofy little play with immortality in the story, and I think it's really interesting. At number 3 is the ever-consistent Kaiju number 8. Kaiju number 8, I think, had the best beginning of a manga. I think this year is not as strong as previously, but that's just because Kaiju number 8 has been so good since it came out. I do find that since we got the period where he goes into training and he's split up from the other groups, that it's been less of an engaging series because they're focusing on multiple characters instead of just our protagonist. But I still find that Kaiju number 8 develops the great obsession of a protagonist of being recognized by the person he loves or cares for his accomplishment, despite him kind of fast-tracking it to the front of the line through a power. Like, he becomes a monster, and now he's able to become as strong as he always wanted to be, but he was never able to get there in other means, and now he has to find a way to kind of control that and meet the expectation of the girl that he always wanted to acknowledge him. And I don't know, I love Kaiju number 8. I think it's great storytelling, and I think it should be read. Guys, if you're still watching, thank you so much. Like and subscribe to the channel would be really appreciated. Comment down below on what your 3 favorite mangas of the year are. I'm curious. Also, maybe I haven't read them, and I'm looking for more stuff to read. Also, tell me if you'd be interested in me doing a tier list for manga. I have hundreds of them that I've read, so I'd be curious if you would be interested in me doing that. At number 2 is Goodbye ERIE. Oh my god, this one is rough, guys. Okay, of all the other series I mentioned on this, there's some slice of life, there's some shonen with a little bit of darkness to it. This one is very dark. It's from I think it's from the creator of Chainsaw Man. And I did put Chainsaw Man on this, but I think Chainsaw Man is extremely solid, though for some reason I was just not engaged with it this year. But let's say it would be the 3rd honorable mention if ever I mentioned it. But Goodbye ERIE is a one-shot. So story's complete. It's a couple of chapters, basically. One long story about a character that films his mother's end of life, and basically shows it as a school project at school. I'll give you a bit more of a synopsis of it. There's some serious spoilers in this, just because it's not that short of a one-shot, but for you to get an idea of what it is. Before I tell you the spoilers, decide based on this. Character does a recording of basically the last moments of his mother's life. It's done to kind of show off the good person she was, and blah blah blah. And then he shows it at school. It's met with a lot of like pushback. People think he's kind of terrible for many reasons. And this girl comes to him saying she loved it and she wants to do a video with him. Okay, now I'm going to hugely spoil stuff because I have to talk about this. The stuff you find out in this series is kind of crazy. To find out that the life that was being filmed at the end was not the truth. It was this woman that was manipulative, was abusive, that just wanted her last moments of life to show her as a super positive and like really good person, where in reality she was kind of a monster. And ERIE, the girl that he meets with, is also dying and pushes him to record her last moments. And they do so, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful because the character's fighting with who he is. And honestly, guys, I think this one, while it's not my number 1 just because I didn't enjoy it the most this year, I think it's phenomenal, and I think you should check it out. It's definitely up there. At number 1 is Blue Lock. After my number 2, this seems like such a departure to the side of just a completely different series. But Blue Lock remains a masterpiece of sports manga. I don't think there's anything else out there that could rival Blue Lock in regards to sports manga. I've read a lot of it, and there's some great stuff out there, but from a quality of art perspective and just the storytelling taking place through each game, through each kick, through each moment is like nothing I've ever seen before. I think it is fantastic, and I started watching the anime. They're doing a great job of the adaptation. I still don't think anything compares to the manga even close, but they're doing their best. But this manga is insane. My only gripe is that the chapters this year have gone from being chapters that covered, you'd basically have like 3 chapters covering a game, to now it being like 10 chapters covering a game. They're kind of doing that Haikyuu thing where like each moment they're almost doing minute by minute in the chapters, and it's like it's a little long, which means like you're waiting a long time to actually see the outcome of certain back and forth. Literally from one end of the field to the other is a chapter, which is kind of nuts. But I can't fault it for it. It's phenomenal. It's worth it. Guys, if you like this video, like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more content about manga, I'm curious, leave a comment down below. Of course, Manhwa will always be my bread and butter and the thing I do the most, but I'd be curious if you want to see more manga content from me going forward. With that, guys, thank you for watching and have yourself a great day.